still says scheduled, Jen.
We're live.
We are?
We're live.
Oh my gosh, here we are on our first anniversary show, and we're having a technology glitch. Jen, you're absolutely certain we're live?
Yes.
Okay. The broadcast is live. Here we go. Hello, everyone. I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen. Obviously, a little fatigued here. It is Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021, and I am here with the amazing Jennifer Wilner. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Bon.
Thanks for having my back here. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are celebrating 1 year of shows of Heads Together. Incredible, right?
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I can't believe it really flew. I had no idea when it finally hit me that it's a year. Welcome to all of our viewers and listeners from all over the world. Hi, Gail. Welcome, Lynn. It is our first anniversary, so we get ready to party. We have a lot to celebrate today, and we have a terrific guest speaker with us. Before I introduce Ike Saunders to you, though, I want to just take a moment to talk about this first anniversary and what Heads Together started out to be and where we're at right now. Hey, welcome, Marion. Welcome to the show. Jen, can you believe it's been a year?
No, it flew by.
And I mean, you counted how many shows we've done, but we are definitely
56.
We're up to 56. Yeah.
56.
It's a lot of shows. And the vision when we started was, that we fooled around with the name a little bit, but I settled on Heads Together because that really kind of said it to me that I think of Jen and I putting our heads together with each of you. And I want to welcome everybody into the show today. It's so great to see you from all over. Thanks, Kathy Kubik, wishing us. You've been a guest on our show. Hi, Jennifer and Karam. The vision that I had, and I talked to Jen about it, and actually I have to give a shout out to Robert Sanders, my partner. This actually was his idea. He said, I think you ought to just go live every week and talk to the community, talk with the community, really. And that's where Heads Together comes in, that this platform enables Jen and I to really be agile about the news of the day, the burning issues that are impacting assistants and people in the workplace. And then, we started bringing on guest speakers, and, I would wake up in the morning and I think, I know what we have to do. And it made so much sense about Black History Month and Women's History Month. And here we are in Pride Month. And you see, and we're getting very fancy with our backgrounds there, right? So that was the vision. And my hope is that we are fulfilling that vision for the community. And our attendance is growing every single week. And we're so happy you're here. The replays are being watched week after week. And we really feel like we're serving an important purpose. Throughout today, if you have questions, comments, put them in the chat, and Jen's going to be helping us monitor. So, Jen, what's your comment about all of that?
I think it's been great. It's been a great year, and I have an ask for the community. So if you've been watching us for this past, I think I said it was 56 episodes.
Yeah.
BTUA alum Bonnie doesn't know anything that I'm going to ask this, but if you are a proud BTUA alum and you have seen through Heads Together, through BTUA, I would love for Bonnie, for you to leave a Google review, and I will share that link. I think that would be what a great way to let people know what it's been like for you.
That's a great idea, Jen. Thank you so much. And so what are you going to do? Put the link?
I'm going to put the link in the chat so everybody can just
how people could give a short review on Google my business. Is that
Yeah.
what we're doing?
That's
I
it.
depend on Jen for these things. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So, and then, okay. And in the promo for today, I am going to be giving two prizes. One full scholarship for BTUA On Demand, which is Vicki Evans and our on-demand class, via video, but we have once a month live Zoom meetings, and a full scholarship to BTUA Virtual, which is happening on July 8th and 9th. And Jen, you're going to tell everybody how they do that, right?
Yes. So you want me to tell them exactly what they need to do?
Yeah, let's tease it now, and you can
so
scroll or whatever.
Yeah, yep, here we go. So in 50 words or less, you're going to write what B2A would do for you and email Bonnie at bonnie.low-kramen.com. And the deadline is midnight tonight.
Midnight tonight. So if you're hearing this right now, in 50 words or less, if you want to either have BTUA On Demand or BTUA Virtual, tell me which one. And in 50 words or less, tell me what it is that experience would do for you. Okay. Now our guest today is Ike Saunders, and I'd love to tell you about our friend and colleague. And he is a BTUA alumni. We met, I think, Ike's going to have to help me here. I think we met in 2016 at the ELS Forum in Chicago, and then you came to BTUA. But he's originally from Orlando, okay? But he's been based in Chicago for the last 13 years. He works as the executive and personal assistant to Christopher Kennedy, and his wife, Sheila Berner Kennedy. He is about to celebrate, I think, 12 years working with them, and he's going to tell us about that. He celebrates 12 months in the role. So excited to have him on the show today, because when I realized, June is Pride Month, and I felt like I wanted to bring someone onto the show to talk honestly, directly about the issues facing the LGBTQ plus community. Now, let me just tell you a little bit more about Ike, that, like most EAs, he does whatever it takes to get the job done. And in 2017, did he ever? He took on the role of campaign scheduler when Chris decided to run for governor of Illinois. Oh dear, that was 13 months. And I remember talking with Ike during that time, and he was a very busy, crazy EA. Unfortunately, Chris did not go on to be governor, but that would have been very interesting had he done that. And who knows, Ike, that might be in your future. Ike is the founder of an organization in Chicago called REACH, REACH, and it stands for Regional Executive Assistants Cocktail Hour. And he is also a member of New York Celebrity Assistants, which is the organization I helped start. And he has spoken at several EA conferences. He is also the recipient of the Colleen Barrett Award from the Chicago Admin Awards that Sunny Noonan runs. And he won that award, their highest award, in 2019. His speech went viral on social media, and I think he's going to put the link in the chat because it was an extraordinary speech. I've actually watched it several times. Ike was the organizer in Chicago's 2019 Pride Parade for the nonprofit organization called Free Mom Hugs, which is a group of affirming parents and allies who love their LGBTQ plus kids unconditionally and take hugs of love and acceptance to others. As a member of the community, I'm going to refer to it, because it's a mouthful, I'm going to refer to it as the community, as long as Ike is okay with that. Ike performs in drag from time to time, and he's actively involved into of Chicago's gay sports leagues. And he's got a picture to show us about a show that he was in. Let us welcome to Heads Together, Ike Saunders. Yay.
Hi.
Hey. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's always so fun to have you with us, Ike. Any excuse we can have to.
Well, I appreciate it. And congratulations on a year for Heads Together. That's an awesome accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to ask you our rapid fire questions, but since you brought it up, I know you've sat in on a bunch of these, and it's always fun to see your name pop up in the chat if I can split my focus. You've been to BTUA. Was any of this a surprise? What's your thought about what we're doing here?
No, I mean, I think it's testament to what you're able to do, and I think it's really speaks to the leadership role you play in our community. Heads Together really does a great job of bringing different experts into the conversation and different topics to the surface that I think a lot of us as administrative professionals or executive assistants tend to either grapple with, and we don't realize what sorts of resources are available or what sorts of experts are available in our field. At other times, I think you bring up topics that maybe we don't even know to consider. I know a couple of weeks ago you had an HR professional on to talk about not hourly versus salary, exempt versus non-exempt.
Yeah.
And I think, those are issues that we as assistants are often expected to deal with and figure out on our own, and not having necessarily an HR background. We rely on people like you and programs like Head Together to bring together diversity of opinion and expertise. So I'm really, really glad to be a part of it, and glad to see that it's gone 56 weeks. So
yeah, well, we're going to keep doing that, I talk with assistants all the time, and I'm hearing the anxiety and the issues that are coming forward. And so I think, let's talk about cryptocurrency, because it's in the news every single day.
Yes.
And these issues, my criteria is always, will this help the assistants? Will this help somebody? And if the answer is yes, it's let's. So Jen, what do you think? There's a very little short distance between the idea and making it happen. And so if anybody's listening, whoever you're on the call, welcome, welcome. If any of you ever have ideas for show ideas, topics that we need to be grappling with, bring it. Bonnie at BonnieLow-Kramen.com. It's not that, kind of easy to find. All right. Ike, you're game for our rapid fire questions, right?
Sure. Yes.
All right. Who's your favorite musical artist or group?
I would say it's a tie between Little Mix for girl power and Galantis is one of my favorite DJs.
Okay. What's your favorite vacation spot?
I try not to go to the same spot too often, more than once, because I think it's fun to explore. But there's a community on the east side of the Lake Michigan known as the Dunes, which happens to be a very popular gay destination. But it's a small beach town that's easy to drive to from Chicago. So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Is it in the plan for this summer?
It is possibly in the plan for Labor Day, but a lot of people are excited to travel, and so it might be hard to get a hotel.
Yeah. What's your favorite meal?
I cook a ton, and my boyfriend and I really like making sheet pan chicken thighs with vegetables. It's a really easy dish, and it's to make, but you can also make it Italian, or you can make it Indian, or you can make it Asian, and it's easy to swap in ingredients and make a really simple meal.
So what's the protein in it?
Chicken thighs, which are the greasy and delicious version of chicken.
So what's the favorite speech you've heard or video you've watched?
I love to share with people, and I'll find a link if I can and share it. But there's a graduation speech by an author by the name of David Foster Wallace. And if you Google or search on Vimeo or YouTube the speech called "This is Water," it is a really insightful, and for me it was very life-changing sort of way to approach life and sort of understand and appreciate that everybody's living a different experience in the world than you are, and to be empathetic and compassionate.
What's the name of it again?
I'm sorry, This is Water, and it's by David Foster Wallace.
Love it. I love learning these things on the show and sharing it with everybody. And when you watch these things, let Ike know, let me know, and how wonderful it is. What's your favorite app on your phone?
Sheila, Chris's wife, actually introduced me to Scannable, which has been very important when working remotely, which allows you to make everything into a PDF without having to use a scanner.
Love that. You know, we talk about those kinds of things at
I love that question. Every time you ask it, it's always fun to hear what other people like.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie?
The Heat with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy, comedy.
And what's your least favorite sound?
Anything repetitive. So snoring, tapping, shaking, scratching. My brain can't stop anticipating it and I get distracted really easily.
Gotcha. What's the stereotype that makes you craziest?
I don't know if it's a stereotype, but I think the belief that divorce or the end of a relationship means that there was a failure involved and not just all of the juice squeezed out of the lemon.
It's an interesting way to think about it. And last question, tell us one thing that people would never guess about you.
Everybody here knows I do drag, but I would say if people saw me on the street with my beard, they probably wouldn't assume that I do drag. And so that's my secret.
And you do, when you do it, you have, I mean, surely makeup can't cover that.
No, I do all of this off. I'm Italian, so I have very hairy legs. And so I don't shave my leg hair, but I do put on like 6 to 8 pairs of dance tights, which is very uncomfortable, but it hides everything.
Hold on, 6 to 8 pair?
Yeah, so that's how thick my hair is. And you've got to, when you're under the spotlight on stage, you've got to make sure you cover it as well as possible. So
wow, that's an interesting fact to know and tell. All right, so let's jump in here, Ike. I asked you to come on talk about Pride Month and your experience being an openly gay assistant. Can you, and I know you have some pictures to share that Jen will pull up as you ask for them. Can you tell us about your journey, your activism, and things like if you've experienced discrimination or homophobia? Talk to us.
Sure. So I'm 34 and I am sort of part of a generation that has had the experience of, sorry, let me rephrase that. Generations of today are coming out a lot younger than people of my generation maybe did, and certainly people of older generations. But I came out between 8th and 9th grade to my family and in school, and so I've been out for 21 years. And I sort of joke or say that everybody in the gay community has sort of your age, and then everybody has your coming out age. And so I would say my experience having been out for 21 years is probably going to be different from somebody who is the same age as me, but maybe has only been out for 5 years. And certainly people who are the same age as me and who've been out since they were 8 and identified as, gender nonconforming have a completely different experience than I do. So I say that to acknowledge the fact that I have been lucky in a lot of ways of my life, being a cisgender white man, and I don't want to not acknowledge that privilege that I have. And I know that my instances and experiences of discrimination are pale in comparison to what a lot of people in the community have experienced. So I'm grateful for that. I've probably would say that anybody who is maybe a gay man has probably had the slur that starts with the F word yelled at them from a moving vehicle at least once during their lifetime. And I would say, women who identify as lesbian have probably been called equally as horrible things just as often. And, there's a lot of insecurity and self-hatred that can grow if people don't pay attention to what that sort of discrimination, prompts you to want to believe about yourself. And so I'm really, really grateful that I have been lucky enough to have supportive friends and family that have helped encourage me through my journey to be as an activist within my community as much as possible. Prior to working for Chris, if I can backtrack a little bit, I was in a sales and recruiting position with a staffing firm, and that's predominantly female industry, and I as an assistant work in a predominantly, female industry and role right now. And I feel super comfortable and appreciative in that industry of all of the hard work that I think, women do. And I think there's a lot of stereotypical, albeit believable, and truth in the fact that a lot of gay men, such as myself, and women can find a lot of camaraderie and bond over, different struggles or different things that they might face in the workplace. And I sort of thought that working in the staffing firm, I would experience that sort of compassion and camaraderie. And it was, me and several other women, and my supervisor was also a woman, and she had assigned me the Disney account. So I was handling, staffing temps at Disney and administrative roles. And in that role, I was responsible for building rapport with the hiring managers at Disney. And an easy way to do that is to talk about your relationships and to talk about maybe it's your wife or your husband or your girlfriend or your boyfriend. And I recall many times trying to connect with another person just as a human being by talking about, the person I was dating at the time. And I got some aggressive feedback from my boss about how inappropriate that was. And that might have been phrased at the time as, not something to talk about because it's not relevant to the work at hand. But I think that was a very shrouded way of saying, not to bring your relationship into the workplace. And, people I think who are members of our community face that all the time, whether it's attending a work event and having the option to bring a +1 and being uncertain about how comfortable you can be to bring somebody as a +1. And I'm grateful enough and lucky enough to have a boss who is very liberal and very democratic, and of course very supportive of me in all aspects of my life, as is his wife. And I sort of hesitated a little bit to share with him some of the work. I think activism work maybe build it up a little bit, but some of the work I do in the way that I do drag. And I got started in drag as a part of a fundraiser for the volleyball league, one of the 2 volleyball leagues I'm a member of, and it's an LGBTQ plus volleyball league. And we have that fundraiser every year in order to raise, it's an amateur drag show, and it's a fundraiser to raise funds to allow people who don't have the means to pay to be part of the league, join the league. And things like gay sports leagues and gay social clubs are really, really important, I think, to a lot of people who are in a new city trying to find friends. But also that's, as funny as it sounds, like a lot of times gay men are not raised to be comfortable, in their skin, of maybe being more sensitive or, not being able to tough it out. And so us exploring the sports realm can be a bit difficult and foreign and challenging. And I think, it might not be the sort of traditional social activism that I know a lot of, my friends and family are strong in, but I think intra-community activism in terms of making safe spaces for people who are in the gay community comfortable by making these leagues available to them is, an interesting but very important way to demonstrate activism, I think. And I think, too, for me, being an amateur drag queen was fun for the community, but it was also a launching pad for me to be in the Pride Parade and for me to be involved with Chris's campaign at the time when he was campaigning for governor. I would sit in for different prep sessions for, debates or forums that he was a part of as a candidate. And there were a couple that were specific to the LGBT community, and making sure that he was up to speed, because I was the only person who was at least an openly member of the community on the campaign staff, making sure he understood the different medical issues that, gay men and gay women in their mid-30s are facing as voters of Illinois was, a nuanced and unique way that I, as an assistant, and I think probably a lot of people watching as assistants, have to sort of speak into the ear of leaders about what it is that the community needs to grapple with, or what concerns we have. And so I think that I've tackled activism in different ways. There are, of course, lots of marches and protests that I think are a lot more critical to advancement of different social efforts. Just 2 weekends ago, there was a march in Boys Town, Chicago, which is the sort of traditionally recognized gay, neighborhood in Chicago. And it's, demanding a lot of justice that we as community, both, a gay community and also the Chicago community, owe to marginalized communities of color, particularly those who are in LGBT communities. And I think that sort of activism is really key to effective change in sort of the near future we're facing.
So, am I remembering correctly that Chris and Sheila actually attended a show of yours?
They did. So Chris found out that I did drag sort of abruptly. He was going to march in the parade during his campaign, and I was going on the float, and I was in head-to-toe drag. And Jen, if she has the photo of me in drag available, she's welcome to pull that up now. This is not from that parade, but it is from the same month. And Chris and Sheila were so surprised. Not that I was surprised that they were supportive, but they were so comfortable with something that was such a personal part of me and a personal part of my life. And that's me at a show at a local bar. And they, during Pride Month in 2017, came to a gay nightclub. And if anybody is on from Chicago, they came to Charlie's in the middle of Boys Town at 11:30 at night on a Saturday with 3 or 4 of their friends, and came to cheer me on. And
yeah, that must have meant so much.
Yeah, they're very supportive too of the fundraiser that we do every year, and their kids and all of the campaign staff have come to those fundraisers, and it's really, really, I'm lucky and grateful to have people in my professional circle who support that. And that
right. So you made reference to you used the term cisgender before.
Yes.
Can you talk about pronouns and why are they important, and help everyone listening on this call? Can you help raise our awareness about, it seems like there's a lot of talk about them right now and people are using them on their LinkedIn profiles. Tell us what cisgender is, for example.
Sure. So first I want to compliment and say thank you for using the expression raise awareness, because I think what people need to acknowledge in this particular topic is whether it affects you or about you is irrelevant. It is an important and really, really important critical issue, in our personal lives and in the way that the professional world is developing. So the first thing I'll tease out for people who might not be familiar with it is, there's the concept of gender, which is a social construct, and I won't get too much into the philosophy behind that, but gender relates to how you sort of internally identify, and sex, meaning male or female, is biologically, determined. It's determined biologically, and what how your body is made is the way that I'll say that. And so people need to understand that a lot of people have a gender identity that matches their the sex that they were assigned at birth. So as an example, my pronouns are he, him, his. I identify as male, and I was born biologically a male. So all of that being the same, I'll say, is what being cisgender means. And so I was born a male and I identify as male. People who were born and assigned a sex other than that which they identify with internally may consider themselves one of several terms. And the terms I'm about to list, of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but there are people who identify as transgender, meaning if they were born biologically a male, they identify as female, and they would use the pronouns she, her, hers. And in that instance, that person would have preferred pronouns that are important to that person, and that is where the bill stops on why that is important. If somebody has a preferred pronoun, regardless of what their reasoning might be and whether they've decided to share that with another person or not, it is the only way to honor another human being is to use their preferred pronouns. And that's not a belief, that's not a religion, that is a matter of treating somebody with dignity and humanity. There are other identities that people might claim or align themselves with that might be gender fluid, which means they maybe feel like they don't identify as male entirely or female entirely, and they are fluidly along the spectrum, either in the way that they feel internally or the way that they might dress. There are people who consider themselves non-binary, and those are folks who don't believe that it's important to distinguish between male or female because they don't believe that either of those, the gender is a binary system. So I hope that was sort of an okay introduction.
Yeah. And what pronouns do they use, Ike? And I'm sorry, big thunder here.
No, I'm surprised I can actually hear that. So the pronoun, most people will use either he, him, his, or she, her, hers, or they, them, theirs. And I understand there might be a bit of sort of a mental gymnastics thing for people to understand that somebody might prefer to use they when referring to themselves in the singular sense, but we need to abandon the grammatical confusion with that and just sort of accept the fact that somebody who is perhaps non-binary, who might identify as non-binary, is more likely to identify with the pronouns they, them, theirs. And there are people who will say it doesn't matter to me, or you know, I'm either, and you can call me either, and that's just as well. But if somebody doesn't have an important, if somebody personally doesn't hold an important weight within their own pronouns, that in no way, shape, or form diminishes the importance that we need to give others when considering other people's pronouns. And that's why I think I try to start all of my emails to multiple people with the term gang, which is something that Chris does, and I've sort of adopted it. But you know, I think folks or everyone is appropriate. I think getting away from ladies and gentlemen, as silly as that might feel, or as abnormal or new as that might feel, I think getting away from that is really the important way to consider the people who don't identify as ladies or gentlemen, and also the way to be a more progressive and accepting organization to the organizations coming to work.
Yeah, I mean, I admit I do use or I have used it, ladies and gentlemen, but you're raising my awareness here. Jen, if you can bring up Terry's comment, I think Ike will be, we're all interested in this, that it's her child's 26th birthday and they've come out as non-binary today. But in their own post late last night and mine this morning, acknowledging their years on Earth, I'm still learning and appreciate this becoming an open discussion more often.
Thank you so much, Terry, for sharing that. That's really great. And I'm sure that your child is so grateful to have your support and acknowledgement of that. So yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And
June of this year is not going to be the only time we're going to talk about this on Heads Together. That is for sure. Ike, you and I talked a week or so ago about some of the things that are concerning you and worrying you, and one of them has to do with health insurance. Can you talk to us about, you know, this level of impact on the community?
Sure. So my own personal experience is that I work at Chris and me, so we're a very small business. And so we have a broker that I have the luxury and opportunity to interact with immediately on any sort of our healthcare questions. And my boyfriend just recently moved in, and so we were adding him as a domestic partner to my policy. And there's a lot of, I don't know if most of you have looked into the complicated world of healthcare benefits or, you know, employer benefits and how that can affect taxes. And I had to do a lot of research to better understand how adding him to my policy, whether that would have tax consequences and what those tax consequences would be. And, you know, surprisingly, my broker, at least one of the people who worked at the broker, unfortunately came back to me with misinformation. And to their point, they were misinformed and they thought they had the answer, and they've since acknowledged that they didn't. But you know, I had to go to the broker and I had to go to our accounting firm and our payroll company, and so many people didn't have the answer about, you know, what it is to add somebody as, you know, as a domestic partner to my healthcare. Yeah. That seems like such a, to me, that's, it is so unsettling to think that a department might not have an awareness about what sorts of things might affect me or any of their other employees. And it would sort of, you know, raise the concern that in the same similar difficulties that I know other marginalized groups or maybe that women face with, you know, healthcare concerns that they might have that their employers or their benefits departments might not be able to address. You know, it got me thinking that there are things related to healthcare in the form of HIV medication treatment or preventative healthcare that might relate specifically to people of the LGBT community. And when I was working with Chris on prepping him for the debates and the forums, there were issues that he was unaware of, and that I am glad I was able to make him more aware of, that the policy hopefully would have done the same for. But our insurance departments and healthcare benefit departments rely on us, meaning the LGBTQ community, but also our allies and advocates, to figure out what it is that they don't know or don't know that they need to tackle, and they need to be ready to tackle it.
And it's hard enough when you bump into people who don't have the answer, but then if you get attitude or you get judgments back, you can see how it's a distancing thing, and people can feel really demoralized and diminished from that experience. So you certainly got the answer, right? You plugged away, as most EAs would. Jen, could you put up Marion's question? Because Mary's noticed some people being insecure when meeting someone from the community, about how to address them. Is it accepted to ask someone directly how they like to be addressed? What do you recommend?
So thank you, Marion, for asking that question. And I think I had taken a note to myself on that I wanted to share during the pronouns discussion I didn't get to, but this raises the point. I am a believer that 100% of the time it is appropriate, if you feel comfortable asking somebody what their pronouns are, and it can be just as simple as, what are your preferred pronouns? If somebody doesn't know what that means, it could be an education moment. If somebody, like myself, I would always appreciate somebody asking that, just because I have friends and family who have preferred pronouns, and it demonstrates a sort of sensitivity and awareness. My own personal belief too is that if somebody takes offense to that, or if somebody recoils or reacts negatively, that's just what you might need to know about that person at that time. And I think that it's also important when we're in group discussions, or even if you're in a discussion with a colleague and the two of you are talking about somebody who identifies a certain way, or maybe has what we call transition, where they're beginning their transition journey to going by their pronouns and living their life as the gender they identify with. Anytime somebody does what's called dead naming, which is using somebody's maybe old name. If, for example, Bob transitioned and was now known as Sally, you would never refer to Sally as anything other than Sally. And if anybody were to use Sally's old name, to call that person on it in a kind way, but they need to be corrected if they're using an old name, if they're using the wrong pronouns, and it needs to happen every time they're doing it.
And that's called dead naming?
Dead naming. So somebody who was born under a certain, as a certain person, and they grow up and realize that they are perhaps transgender, want to transition, using their name that they have abandoned is called dead naming them, and that's considered a very disrespectful and inappropriate thing to do.
And what is the right way to correct someone? And say it's done innocently. What is the correct response to that?
So let's say if Bonnie, let's say I'm not going to put you on, I'm sorry. Let's say that I incorrectly called my friend Sarah Bob as a dead name. And I said, oh, last week when Bob was at the market, he did this. A person interacting with me could say, do you mean Sarah? And that's the kind way to do it. And if I mistakenly kept saying Sarah and then incorrectly used the word he, such as when Sarah was at the grocery store, he, interrupting somebody and saying, no, Sarah's pronouns are she. And that seems aggressive and forceful, and it's probably going to feel, like I said before, unfamiliar to some people. But that is, there's a sort of a joke, not a joke, but like an example that people will use when you see a dog and you say, oh, what a pretty girl, what's her name? And somebody says, oh, it's actually boy. It's in our nature to immediately correct ourselves and not get it wrong again. And if we can do that with animals, we need to be able to do that with humans, for Pete's sake. So.
Wow, that you are really raising awareness here, Ike. This is terrific. I know you've given some resources to Jen to put up in the chat. Is that cool if Jen, because as we're going to be winding down in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Jen, if you can put those resources in the chat, if anyone listening has a need for more information, do you want to talk about what those resources are?
That would be great. And I'm sorry I didn't better fold them into the discussion. And I think
there's so much to say.
Yeah. One of my favorite resources that I think is a great, I think a lot of parents would have benefited from knowing it, maybe when I was growing up, is called Free Mom Hugs. And their website is freemomhugs.org. And this is an organization that I have the balloon photo, if it's convenient enough for Jen to put it up. But they are an organization that was founded by a woman by the name of Sarah Cunningham, who is an active member in her religious community, but has a gay son. And she grappled a lot with her religion, which taught her at the time not to accept her son for who he is, and her belief that God is all loving. And I'm myself, I'm not religious, and Sarah is, Free Mom Hugs organization is not a religiously affiliated organization. I say that because she comes from a place of understanding as a religious person, but it's an organization dedicated to advancing and promoting love for all people, particularly those who maybe don't have parents who've accepted them. And they, in this photo, we're getting ready for the Pride Parade, and they're well known across the country now at Pride Parades for hugging people who are marching in the parade or people who are at the parade, and people collapse in happy tears of, not having hugged a parent in a decade. And I think people who are interested in being advocates for our community, whether you have a gay kid or not, or a transgender kid or not, can benefit from that organization. And the other resource I saw Jen posted, to pivot real quickly, Human Rights Campaign is a well recognized equality organization across the country that has a corporate equality index where employers can be rated against a system of how HRC views equality in terms of treatment of employees and vendor relationships and customers. And I think people who are concerned about whether or not their company can be stewards in the realm of LGBTQ plus allyship can submit their company to HRC for evaluation. And I think that's a great way to put your money where your mouth is when companies say they are about equality.
Right. Are you optimistic about where we're at right now in our country in terms vis-a-vis the community and where we're headed?
I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful, and I'm optimistic. I think there's a lot of work to do. I have heard from my own friends over the past, difficult, election year that, it's possible for people to realize where they have space to grow and but more space to love. And I think, it's not our responsibility as members of the gay community or LGBT community, to necessarily proactively educate people who aren't members of our community, but it is our responsibility to answer those questions in the same way that it's my responsibility as a white person to educate myself on the issues and challenges that communities of color face, and it's not on them to teach me
exactly.
So I hope that these efforts like Heads Together and every small effort that we have as a community bring people together and advance our social growth.
Yeah. Are there any other top things front of mind about how we can all be allies, how we can be allies for the community? Because surely in our groups, in our teams, in companies, we know that a diverse group is a stronger one, a better one, and more innovative, more creative one. How can we do this better?
I think on the one hand, it's so great to see so many organizations doing the Rainbow Pride marketing, in June. And there's a photo going around the internet where, they say a 15-year-old me would have never imagined a world in which I would have been able to go through a mall and see all these companies supporting us. And that's true. But I think it's important that companies put their money where their mouth is. And there are companies like AT&T and Comcast that preach about their belief in equality, and they fund anti-LGBTQ candidates for elected office. Or the second, July 1st rolls around, companies drop their pride colors and they forget about the community until the next year, when instead they could buy a table at the Equality Illinois Gala, or when an office is donating furniture, they could donate to a local organization like the Brown Elephant up in Andersonville, which is the resale shop for Howard Brown, which is a community-based healthcare system dedicated to serving the LGBT and youth communities. And they raise money by selling stuff through Brown Elephant. So there are ways to actively get involved and put money and resources into the LGBTQ communities outside of just selling things with flags. And I think we need to make sure we do that year round.
Yeah. And so even you, I mean, thank you for, you self-corrected. And so I remember during Black History Month that, some white people would make the comment that they don't want to say it wrong, so they say nothing. And, we have to try. We have to stumble about and make mistakes and get corrected in order to make it better, right?
Right. And it's interesting. Today I was meeting with Chris about something, and he asked me a question, and I sort of stumbled over the answer, and I paused, and he said, if you don't know the answer, tell me you don't know the answer, and then go figure it out. And I think, my God, how lucky am I to have a boss to believe that? But also, I think that's how all of us need to approach life, and we need to remember it's okay to be wrong so long as you learn from it, and it's okay to ask questions.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you get into a space where you're uncertain if maybe a question you're asking is appropriate or inappropriate, but a lot of times you can Google that it's inappropriate to ask somebody about their genitalia, but it's not inappropriate to ask them about their pronouns. And we need to figure out a way to your point, address that and not say nothing because we're afraid.
Yeah. And for those movie buffs who are listening here, you all probably know that I worked for 25 years for Olympia Dukakis. And one of Olympia's favorite of her films, her own films, was a mini series she did called Tales of the City.
I love that series. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Tales of the City was a mini series. It was Tales of the City, then more Tales of the City, then further Tales of the City. It's on Netflix right now. Olympia played a woman who used to be a man, and she transgender. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I'll never forget it. It was very cutting edge. The Channel 13 PBS. It was, very controversial at the time that Olympia was doing this, was playing this part. And she asked the producers to help her find a transgender person who she could sit down and have lunch with and just have a conversation with. It is really considered a terrific film, a series of films, and I highly recommend it. It's I'm very proud of her for having done that, and she did it with great pride. Mm-hmm. So Ike Saunders, thank you so much for being here and for
thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, and thanks to everybody who attended and asked questions. And Terry, again, congratulations on being a great parent and having a great kid who feels comfortable in the world being who they are. So you should be proud of that.
And there's a quick question about the pictures in back of you. What are they?
So Chris has all over the office different walls, and I'm in the office, and these are all photos of the Kennedy family en masse in different events, and most of them are from his birthday is on the 4th of July, so it's coming up, and he has this photo that I don't know if anybody can see it, but it's 100 Kennedy family members in his back lawn that he has for his birthday every year. So it's just a little more dedicated to that.
Well, wait. Do you attend that? Do you go?
I have been there once because I was in Provincetown for vacation, and they were so nice to include me. It is an overwhelmingly it is a big party, and it is a lot of fun, but it is a lot of Kennedys in one place, and I'm good. One that I get on a regular basis. So
I thought you were going to say, and it's a lot of work.
Oh no, I thankfully don't work it at all.
Yeah, right. Well, listen, thank you all so much for joining us. Now, listen, if you're interested in your chance for a full scholarship, Jen, come on back. A full scholarship to BTUA On Demand, which you can learn when and where you want, or BTUA Virtual, which is happening July 8th and 9th. just send me an email, 50 words or less. Tell me how this would help you. How did BTUA help you, Ike? Putting you on the spot here.
Oh no, and BTUA was such a great opportunity to be in a small, intimate setting with people who really understand what the gig entails, and it's almost like some walls come down and you're able to relate and vent and learn in such an experience that provides so much depth and such a good amount of breadth, but not so much that you're not getting, substantive information. I loved the size of BTUA. I think that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, but I know that there's great utility in the larger hundreds and thousands of people. That's not ever been the one I wanted to teach. So I wanted it always to be small. Wow. All right. So Jen, thank you so much for our year together.
Yes.
And here's to another year. Going forward, we thank every single person who is participating with us and listening to the replays and forwarding on these recordings to people to help them. In my view, that's what ultimate assistants do, is we help each other. And I know, Ike, you're doing such a great service in Chicago with Reach. Julie Kavanaugh is part of your crew, and you've got some great people in Chicago. That we've got an amazing community of assistants all over the world, and we're going to be here next Wednesday, June 30th. We hope you'll join us again for our year in a week show. Ike, I wish you just all the best, and much love to you.
So great seeing both of you. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you next
week.
Thanks,
Jen.